Good day, friends. Welcome to the June episode of Health Equity Mondays. You're joined by Omari and the lovely Jasmine, and today we're going to talk about one, the start of the student loan repayment, and two, the refugee boat crisis in comparison to the Titan submarine. But before we get into any of that, we got to check in. So, how are you doing, Jasmine?
I am doing amazing. It has
Ooh,
been a really nice June, even
uh,
though school started back up, but it's been a good June.
what's been amazing about it?
I've just been having a lot of really great time with friends. And I have been, so I said school started back up. One of the classes that I'm taking has been taught by two Black women. So it's a huge like juxtaposition from last year when most of my classes were taught by white professors. So I'm enjoying the energy from that class and enjoying the people that are in that class with me. So it's been good. And, we had like Juneteenth and Father's Day weekend and all the things. So it's been a good month and I had a really great weekend. So, you know, I'm in good spirits.
That's awesome to hear. And for people that this might be their first time listening to Health Equity Mondays, what are you in school doing?
So I'm in school getting a doctorate in public health, concentrated in health equity and social justice. And I'm a Bloomberg fellow. So my focus area is adolescent health. So I talk about all things health equity, adolescents, and children, pediatrics. And I love it. So that's why I'm in school. Hopefully, I just started my second year. So hopefully, 2026 graduation.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, and I'm glad that June is going well for you.
Yes. How's your June?
My June has been hectic. Not as amazing as yours. I've been doing a lot of. I've been supporting this organization, Booth Partners, which is based out of Texas, which I'm on the advisory council for, around supporting them like around editing and uploading videos for their community health worker certification that's going to be released soon. So
Hmm.
if any of you have edited before and you have to edit like 8 different people's conversations and kind of make it professional, it takes a lot of time. So it's just been a lot of that, as well as a lot of back end for my website. If you are on my email list, you would have seen that I re-released my website. Granted, it is a little bit glitchy. so, but I will be working on those things this week to make it a little less glitchy and that everything looks how I want it to be. But it's just a different, I guess, level of a normal. But this week in particularly, I've been getting a lot less sleep than I've been just typically. So it's been a little tough, but you know, getting through it and making progress and just seeing how much I can handle, even though I particularly might want to handle all of this and especially like certain things that I have to do. But hey, can't complain overall. Just been a tougher week and tougher couple of weeks than typical. And yeah, just to highlight that point on Juneteenth, since I feel like it's interesting that we're not covering that this month, but I did have a post. Actually, let me pull it up so that I can share it. I shared a post on LinkedIn. So if you aren't following me or connected with me on LinkedIn, be sure to connect with me. There's a link below to do that. So as I said, we I guess it's a little bit strange that we're not talking about Juneteenth in today's episode, but regardless, just want to bring up a little post. So as I said, follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn if you have not as yet. I'm hopefully going to be posting more things. Well, I'm not hopefully. Hold me accountable. I am going to be posting more stuff on LinkedIn from my personal page. So definitely check that out. But just this post, and I would read it out as it says here. Juneteenth commemorates the emancipation of enslaved people in the U.S. 158 years later, Black Americans suffer disproportionate inequities. Black families hold 10 times less wealth than white families. Black women die at 2.6 times the rate of white women. Black Americans have lower life expectancies than their white counterparts. We can close these inequity gaps. It takes an effort from all of us to shift these systems. Let us celebrate and take actions to move forward for Black and all people.
I mean, this is important. I will say that it's not that surprising that we're not focusing on Juneteenth because I do think we should be elevating the voices of Black Texans, because that is where Juneteenth actually originates from. So I would recommend that you look at the work of Dr. Ashley Hickson and Dia Mitchell. They both are native Black Texans. Their families are from Texas, and they put out a lot of interesting information about Juneteenth. And I think it's important to just give them time to shine because the real history of the holiday is in Texas.
Yeah. And just to add to this, because this was one post that I didn't post about on Juneteenth, is that I realized that though we celebrate Juneteenth in June, there are many communities within the US that didn't get their emancipation or freeness from slavery until July or maybe even after that. For example, there's a county that I work in Northeast North Carolina, majority Black, Northampton County, that didn't know about Juneteenth until sometime in July. They have in their records someone came and shared in the courthouse that they were free, and through that information probably was passed on to the white owners. They did not share that information with the enslaved peoples. So yeah, but definitely we'll link to those persons that Jasmine mentioned that are from Texas and have that perspective there as well.
Yes, and to that point, I would say if you live in a different state, you should look up what your Emancipation Day is. There are lots of them that are celebrated, and it's just something, it's a cool fact to know. So do some Googling.
Absolutely. And moving us on to the first topic, student loan repayment. Take it away.
Yes. Okay. So by now, I hope that you've heard that we're likely going to have to start paying student loans in a few months. So if you are new to the conversation around student loans, hopefully you've been taking advantage of the fact that they have been on an extended pause since the COVID-19 pandemic. I know I have. And unfortunately, because of the capitalistic society that we're in, they said that they need their money back. And so student loans are going to be starting, or repayment for student loans is going to start roughly in October. So they're thinking that the actual lift is ending in September and then payments would start in October. And I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at a few articles. So, this is an article from CNBC, and it says that the Education Department posted on its website that payments will be due starting in October. And a recent law passed by Congress will make changing that plan difficult. It says around 40 million Americans have debt from their education. The typical monthly bill is around $350. So, I don't know about you, but I've been appreciating this extra $350 and more back into my life. But, we don't get to continue this. I guess the Supreme Court is still working on their decision for the plan that Biden did that says that people can get up to $20,000 in student loan payments forgiven. So hopefully, I think this week we might be finding out some more about that. So you're probably wondering, why are we talking about student loan payments on Health Equity Mondays? Of course, there's a health tie to debt. So I'm going to show two articles that basically go into how this impacts the overall health of the people, and then, of course, disparities within that impact. So looking at this article from The Hill, it says most student borrowers will struggle to pay their loan debts, and more than half say the amount of debt they owe is putting a strain on their mental health. 56% of those whose mental health is affected by student loans say they've experienced anxiety, while about a third suffered depression. And then it says that people are putting off major life events due to their debt, including starting a family, purchasing a home, and traveling. And then more people, some struggle more than others, as just 31% of women and 21% of Black graduates said that they can afford to make their monthly payments. So we have examples of mental health being impacted and people delaying starting families and major life events, which, if we go back to our first episode and our definition of health equity, it's to live like your happiest life possible. And here we go, student loan debt causing mental health issues. But There's another article that also says that there are some physical health implications for student loan debt. Now, we're looking at an article from the Network for Public Health Law, and they say that a 2015 University of South Carolina study found that many negative health effects, including increased stress and feelings of depleted health, can arise from accumulating student loan debt. Another 2013 study from Northwestern University determined that feelings of significant indebtedness raise diastolic blood pressure, which can increase the risk of hypertension and stroke.
Wow.
Yeah. Then it says that, none of this is equal in how it's characterized and how it's treated. So Black borrowers have lower higher education graduation rates than white borrowers, which indicate that they also have less student debt, yet the opposite is true. Black borrowers hold 186% more debt per capita than white borrowers. While women in general hold an estimated 2/3 of all outstanding student loan debt, Black women owe 22% more than white women. This says a lot, given that we already know Black people struggle with disproportionate impacts of health when we look at hypertension, stroke, diabetes, and mental health, depression, disorders, things like that. So add on the fact that there's more debt in the Black community. Now we have to start paying back these loans in October. We can just imagine what the health impacts are going to be and how inequitable the health impacts are going to be. So it's going to be really important for everyone to start to look at what the legislation is saying when it comes to student loan debt. Look at schools that you're applying to and what their policies are on student loans, and if they are, generous with grants and things like that don't cause the debt crisis to increase. But yeah, we just wanted you to be, one, aware that student loans are going to be back in the sway of things very soon. And then two, to know that it can impact your health and you're not alone if you're feeling stressed or anxious or even depressed about the fact that you're going to have to start these repayments. It's something that we're all struggling with. I know I am. So we're here.
Yeah, and I think it also highlights just where we are as a society when we think about how banks are always given money to get them out of tough situations, but when it comes to the consumers, the people that are actually being affected in a big way, there isn't the same level of generosity or care for public health and the public's health, and just how student loans and debt in itself does burden some people over others, particularly black Americans or black people in general more than others. And I'm a little detached from the situation because I haven't had student loans, and I think I have a different perspective than many people listening to this, and that isn't here nor there. But I am someone who has also had credit card debt in the past, and I know how that can impact my mental health. And I don't have any right now, which that's a whole other conversation. I'm happy to chat more with you all about that. But I think it is just important to highlight that the systems that we are in are not saving us in the way that we need them to, as well as this public health student loan forgiveness program that's going on. And while it has a lot of barriers and there are a lot of issues with it, I think it's a great step in creating like a systemic way for people to get into public health and to do work and then have their loans forgiven. I think I just recently saw on LinkedIn that people were saying that they had like over $100,000 of loans repaid through this program. I know that the percentage rate of people that are successful in these types of programs is not that high, but I think it's important. And the last thing that I would say, and this is from like my unique perspective, is that we need to think about how we approach school, especially as Black people, and just being very mindful of what debt can do to us, not only physically, mentally, but financially, and what that can do for our lives decades after finishing school.
Yes, I will always say that I remember our repayment conversation when we were graduating, and they kept saying that the only way to get your loans canceled is to die. And I think they were joking, but really they weren't. So, yes, we have to be careful about this. And I think it's our job to educate younger people about this because at 18, when you're going into school, you have no idea what it means to take out a $10,000 loan for school. You think, oh, okay, I'll pay that back at some point. This isn't going to be that big of a deal. Your brain is not fully functioning at that point. So it's really predatory, the system that we have. But as people who have grown in the system, who understand, who now are inundated with debt, I think it's definitely important to hold those wisdoms and to bring people up with you and let them know that there are options. There are other ways to pay for school. There is, you don't have to go to school right now if it's going to cause a huge issue later in life. There's always time, always time.
Yeah, and I think just going back to what I'm a big proponent of is community college and just how impactful that could be for you financially in allowing you to not only get that financial benefit of it being a lot cheaper than typical schools, but then also give you the time to mature and understand what it is you want to do. So when you do transfer, if you do transfer into a bigger school, that you don't have a lot of financial burden in that school, as well as you're more focused and aware of what you can and want to do to accomplish that. I'll definitely be talking more about this through LinkedIn, more so in the prevention of this. So, like, why aren't we talking more about community colleges and different ways to prevent this, or just talk about what it means to take on that amount of debt and like how we have to think about it? Because a lot of times people take on debt and then they get into occupations that aren't paying them enough, or to the point of a lot of people going into school and taking careers that aren't even aligned with the degree that they did, or they took a degree that really has no value in the real world. So really just being very intentional in making those decisions, because they have big implications and the system is not set up in a way that is helping people, especially people that are most marginalized, and especially first generation people. Like you have no idea what you're going into in this system and what that can mean for your life. And everyone says an education is a great thing to do to better your life, and it is in many circumstances. But there are other factors that may come into play, like the debt and what that means for your life, stress wise, going forward. So very, very important topic. Definitely think there's a lot of systemic issues that need to be changed around schools, but that's a broad conversation that we could have some other time. But I appreciate you raising up this issue, and I hope that people have been mindful of student loans coming back, and that you are going to have to pay those.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. We could live in a world where there were no taxes, there was no student loan, we could just be chilling on beaches, but we live in a society that says differently. So hey, unfortunately, it's real. It's real.
Oh, beach life would be so nice.
Right.
All right, so it's that time where we promote ourselves. I'm going to go first this time. I really hope that you are subscribed to my newsletter. If you aren't, you can find out information on how to subscribe by following me on Instagram, Health Equity Jazz. You can go to my website, healthequityjazz.com, and all the information is there. Also, I have a paid newsletter, which is a little bit more about the Jasmine behind Health Equity Jazz. So I like to treat this almost like a running diary of sorts. So people are finding out a lot of interesting information about me that is not out there for everybody. So if you're interested in that, you can find out more information. We'll always link our information below so that you can do that. And yeah, at some point, I probably will put up a back to school wish list. I have some books that I need so that I can prepare for my comps and thinking about my dissertation. So I will let you all know when that's there. But just so you know that there might be some books that you can purchase for me if you are so inclined to.
Awesome. And staying on that train of newsletters, be sure to join my newsletter as well. It sounds like newsletters are the way to get the first insights and maybe deeper insights than you get on different platforms that we are on. So be sure to check out those newsletters, both mine and Jasmine, linked below. And it's interesting to share. the information that I'm going to be sharing next it comes from my newsletter. So if you want first insights into thoughts, and I'm really rethinking how I'm going to be sharing my newsletter or email blast with you all, so be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with new things, and you can get the first look at when I'm opening different programs or products and different things like that. If you're interested in consultation calls, my new website does provide a way for you to do that. So check that out, thephmillennial.com. And I am hosting my first happy hour in a few months this Wednesday, Wednesday, June 28th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. If you're interested, it is free. There's a link below to register. If you can't make this one, just be sure to check back. Actually subscribe to my newsletter. You can be the first to know when another happy hour is coming out, because that information drops in my newsletter before anywhere else most of the time. So be sure to check that out.
Yes, please do. They're always fun. I like them. So
awesome. Well, I'm glad that you enjoy them. As always, if anyone gets my newsletters and you want to respond, just reply back, and I will try to respond back in a timely manner. In being honest, I'm not the best with emails, but I do respond to them. So be sure to reply, and then I'll reply back to you when I get some time. Okay. Now, moving on to the next topic that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the Titan submarine and the comparison to the refugee boat crisis. And you're probably aware by now. Well, everyone was aware about the Titan submarine some way or another. You must have seen it on the news or social media. But I think only after this has the refugee boat crisis kind of like raised up to the top, and people started talking about it, which I think is an issue in itself. But what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the connection between this Titan submarine, public health, as well as this connection to inequities. So if you have been under a rock, or you just don't look at the news or social media, props to you. And I'm sure that you're living a happy and peaceful life. So I'll break down the situation. And before I jump into essentially what my newsletter was this past week, for those of you all that are interested in subscribing, you can take a quick look here. You get like a hot take from me around a topic. You get interesting reads, you get books, interesting audios, visual events that are happening, career opportunities, so jobs, fellowships, internships, as well as some behind the scenes stuff. So check that out, link below if you're interested. But taking you all to the interesting thing here, talking about Titan, I will just go through some of the high level points from the newsletter that I sent out. And please forgive me, I have a lot of typos in here that I realized afterwards. So don't kill me for that. So essentially, just to give you a too long don't read description of everything that went on, a 5-person submarine voyage to explore the Titanic. 4 passengers paid $250,000 each for this voyage. So yes, that's a total of $1 million. 2 passengers were billionaires. 1 was a crew member and captain and CEO of the organization, and 2 others were exploration type people. The submarine started its descent to the Titanic around 8 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, June 18th. At around 9:45 Eastern, communication was lost between the submarine, and rescue officials were notified. The submarine was scheduled to resurface at 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, 18th June. It didn't, and it was considered to be lost at this point in time. Rescue missions began, and they were started and kept going through Thursday, the 22nd of June. The submarine had enough air to last until Thursday, 22nd of June, when the rescue missions ended subsequently. So around 2 p.m. on Thursday, the debris was found and was later confirmed to be the submarine after implosion in the water. And then the last point here is that an estimated $6.5 million was spent by the US, Canadian, and French rescue efforts to no avail. Now that we're all caught up, did you all hear about the 300 plus, I think it was 700 Pakistani nationals that died earlier in June after the overcrowded ship, where they were actively and direly trying to escape from war, persecution, and poverty?
I definitely did not hear about this until I want to say Tuesday or so, when they were talking about the Titan submarine. So yeah, I didn't hear about this.
Right. And I think that just goes to show where our media puts the attention, where our society puts the attention on these billionaires that took the choice to go on this exploration trip, while we had people that were literally trying to escape for their lives and become refugees in the place and just work towards a better life for themselves, which I think is why we need to continue to have these conversations. So I just wanted to add to something that I didn't know while I posted this newsletter, was that the Titan CEO, the one that was the crew member on the submarine, was warned and pushed to get safety certified by independent agency by a deep sea exploration specialist. So the Ocean Gate, which was the name of the organization that had this Titan submarine, was designed and built outside of traditional specs. So the deep sea exploration industry wasn't sure if this unregulated submarine would be able to go to the Titanic safely. The CEO actually pushed back against the industry, saying that they were using the safety argument as a way to stifle innovation. The Ocean Gate lawyers actually were even threatening legal action from those concerned about safety. And then the CEO even went on to say, and I quote, "We have heard the baseless cries of you are going to kill someone way too often. I take this as a serious personal insult." So, so, and I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's quite fascinating that this person had so much ego to say, okay, let's not get this third party certification to understand the safety of what is going on here, but just really thinking that the industry was trying to push back on him and his innovation. So in the end, the submarine was never tested, it was never classed, and it was never deemed by the industry to be safe for commercial use. Yet they still persevered, and they were charging people $250,000 a head to go and see the Titanic outside of this. And what I really wanted to highlight here is just firstly the prevention aspect of like why regulation is important, why having third party people certify safety of things is important, why having public health people thinking about these issues and just like really being on the forefront of regulation to ensure that everyone, especially in a commercial use industry, is safe. And at the same time, we have, while we were getting hour by hour updates on the status of the Titan, we were much less likely to hear about the Pakistani refugees, which there were like 300 to 700 of them that died trying to reach a better life for themselves and their families, trying to escape war, persecution, and poverty, as I mentioned earlier. The International Organization of Migration called it, quote, the worst sea tragedy in the past decade in Greece. And just to give some flavorful, colorful thoughts, while I wish death upon no one, I can't help but realize why 6.5 million was spent on trying to rescue these people that made the choice, an expensive choice, to go into the Titanic, when these same countries didn't spend that kind of money on the refugee ship, as well as the lack of media coverage, which, as Jasmine said, and myself as well, I didn't know about this until sometime midweek last week. And I think just highlights the importance of having public health people, and those standing up to speak on behalf of the people that society has deemed not good enough for help. I also wanted to highlight, there's an article which you can check out below where Barack Obama actually shared, quote, the untenable way the Titan submersible tragedy received more attention, and I added, and money, than the recent deaths of the hundreds of refugees near Greece. Like Obama said in this article, I don't believe that it's inherently wrong to share updates on the Titan submarine. I think it's important things that people should be aware of. But I think the bigger note here is, why isn't there the same amount of coverage for the refugees? And I think that's the question that we have to ask ourselves in this public health equity space.
Yeah, I think that what also to me is the most frustrating aspect is that now we know that they knew the submarine imploded well before they started spending the money on it. So it's like you spent this money in vain, knowing that you weren't going to be able to rescue people. You were going to be able to rescue like pieces of a submarine. And here we have lives that could have been saved, that could have been, protected had there been some level of effort to try and get people off of the ship. Because when you look at it, like, it looked I mean, it was it was sad to look at how many people were on this boat
Yeah,
and to know that they were all seeking freedom. And it's just, it's ridiculous how much capitalism is like in the forefront of everything that goes and happens in this country, and in other countries too. Because here we are not knowing about hundreds of people dying for, you know, horrible reasons, honestly. But then we had to spend a whole week knowing about 5 people who chose that. I mean, yeah, the double standard is ridiculous.
absolutely. And just to give a little more flavor context here as well, each person that paid $250,000 to board this ship, the average family of 4 living in Pakistan could live off of $1,000 US per month, excluding rent. So that just kind of shows just how much money people are using to do these things that aren't really beneficial, while we have people out here that just need money to survive and live and aren't getting that type of support. And that is the global capitalistic world that we live in. And once again, I think that's why it's important for us as public health people and professionals to speak up and to continue to be that voice for people that have no voice and are not getting the support and help that they need.
Absolutely. Oh, this was a sad way to end.
Yeah, completely agree. So condolences to all the persons that lost lives. Hopefully that we can do better as a society and take steps so these kinds of issues don't happen in the future. And moving us on to a little bit more of a lighter note, the equity in action quiz, where I get to ask Jasmine a question, true or false, and she gets to answer it, and we get to see who's right and who's wrong.
Okay, y'all. Behind the scenes, Omari has been like really hyping this one up. He doesn't think that I'm gonna get it right. So I'm gonna say I'm a little bit nervous for the first
Well,
time.
it's really tough to try to find questions that you think, oh yeah, that's not an obvious answer. So I hope that this one kind of is a little difficult, and you all answer it as well, and let us know what you think. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment below what you think. Is it true? Is it false? But I will ask the question, and then we will see where Jasmine stands on it. Between 2000 and 2018, did the share of the US Black population living in distressed zip codes drop by 10%? True or false?
Did
So
the
you,
sh- did
so
the
you said,
share
yeah. So
of
essentially, are more populations living in distressed conditions between the time period of 2000 to 2018, or is it less Black population living in distressed living? And if you want, I can find what distressed means, if that is helpful.
that would be helpful.
Okay,
Yes.
let me pull that up. I should have pulled that up before. Uh,
Distressed zip codes, distressed populations. Did it drop by 10% over 18 years?
where is
Well,
the
I know that they
definition?
said that there are less Black people having kids.
Okay, so just to give a
Hmm.
definition of distressed, and to give context for the entire USA, approximately 50.5 million Americans live in distressed communities. And what does that mean? Distressed communities are characterized by widespread poverty, high rates of unemployment, and low levels of educational attainment. They also face stagnant or negative economic growth, which means little to no change in the prospects of those who live there. And there's actually an index that they use, a DCI, Distressed Communities Index.
Okay, can you say it one more time?
So between 2000 and 2018, did the share of the US Black population living in distressed zip codes drop about 10%? True or false?
Ooh. This is a phone a friend. You might have stumped me on this one because I want to say true because there's been an overall decline in the Black population. This is prior to the pandemic. I want to say true, but then I feel like I should say false. Okay, I'm gonna go with false.
It is true. It
I
is
should have
true.
seen my oh.
Yeah,
I
it is.
knew it.
It is true. You were close. You were close to saying it, but you did not. So Omari takes a W this week, and let me share the article here with you all to
Man.
go over this. And I thought this article was very, very interesting, and I definitely think that you all should look into it more. So in the article right here, and I'll go back up to the name of the article in a bit, but between 2000 and 2018, the share of the US Black population living in distressed zip codes dropped about 10%, from 45.6% to 35.3%, according to the report. Nationwide, 70% of majority Black zip codes are distressed. By comparison, 20% of all zip codes and 16% of majority white zip codes in the US is distressed. So I think that just kind of like highlights the
Wow.
inequities there. But it also is kind of interesting to see that these distressed zip codes have dropped for the Black population during this time period. I don't know if there's a new report to say what has happened from 2018 till now, but I thought this was fascinating.
Wow, the next paragraph that it says that only 19 rank as prosperous, that's interesting.
Yeah, the only 19 prosperous majority Black zip codes in the US, and Houston area is home to 2. So I'll also share. Let's pull up.
The DMV must be like,
Yeah, Maryland
yeah,
has
I was
most
gonna
of them.
say, there we
Yep.
go.
So as you can see, I
Ooh,
guess, oh yeah.
Prince George's County, yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
just to give context, the distress score goes from 0, which is least distressed, to 100, which is most distressed. So as you can see, Prince George's County in Maryland has a distress
Whew.
score of 0.9, which is
Well,
quite phenomenal.
Bowie
Right.
in Prince George's County. So the 20720 zip code.
Right. Right.
Look at
And
Prince George's County all over it.
what was most fascinating to me was that there was a county in Tennessee as well as a county in Mississippi that were among these least distressed Black communities. Because I think when we think of these communities, we always think about them as the most marginalized with the most amount of health issues, especially for the Black population. So this was fascinating. And if you want to read more about this, be sure to check the link below, because there's a lot to learn there. But I'm glad that I was able to stomp Jasmine today. I hope that you all were able to maybe figure it out or not. But if you're interested in learning more, as I said, check out this article.
And this is just a reminder to always go with your gut, because my gut told me true and I should have just gone with my gut. All right.
That is true. That is true. Well, thank you all for tuning in today. Be sure to subscribe and share us with someone. If you wanna get someone to think real deeply, you should ask them that equity in action question and see what they answer, and then from there you can have a broader conversation about what this means for the US and how we can work together to have less distressed Black populations around the country.
Yes, and if you're listening and you want me to continue to stay on top, send me some articles that can stump Omari next month, okay? Because I refuse to lose after having held the winning streak, okay?
And right after you send the articles to Jasmine, just send them to me, and I'll pretend like I don't know the answer, and then I'll get them. So I appreciate you all. The phmillennial@gmail.com.
No. All right, y'all. We'll talk to you next month.
All right. Have a good rest of June, and hope the second half of your year starts off very well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We are about to be in the second half of the year. Ooh.
I know. It's crazy.
All right. Well, oh yes, and happy Pride Month. I hope that it's been a great Pride Month for everybody.
Happy Pride Month, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletters. Link below.
Yes.
Peace,
Bye.
everyone.